Commander Jin stood perfectly still in the massive meeting hall on the space station, orbiting Centauri Prime. The room was huge, with walls that seemed to stretch forever upward, made of some strange metal that shifted colors as the light hit it. Around him sat dozens of alien beings, each more bizarre than the last. Some looked like walking crystals, others had tentacles instead of arms, and a few seemed to be made entirely of gas held together by glowing energy fields. Jin had seen a lot in his 45 years, most of them spent preparing for this exact moment. His face showed nothing as he listened to the aliens talk about humanity like they were discussing a new pet they'd found in their backyard. These creatures had traveled across the galaxy, conquered hundreds of worlds, and built an empire that spanned thousands of star systems, but they were making assumptions about humans that would cost them dearly. The meeting had been going on for over 3 hours now. Ambassador Yule of the Krethak Dominion was doing most of the talking. His species looked like living diamonds, with bodies that caught and reflected light in dazzling patterns. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, but the words he spoke were anything but gentle. "Commander Jin," Yule said, his crystalline head tilting slightly, "your species has shown remarkable progress for such a young civilization. In just a few thousand years, you've gone from primitive hunters to space travelers. Most impressive." Jin nodded politely. "Thank you, Ambassador. However," Yule continued, and Jin could hear the butt coming from a mile away, "you must understand that there is an order to things in this galaxy, a hierarchy that has existed for millions of years. Every species has its place, its role to play, in the greater cosmic community." Behind Jin, Captain Mira sat quietly at a smaller table, her fingers moving across her datapad in what looked like simple note-taking. The aliens paid her no attention, which was exactly what she wanted. While they talked down to Jin, she was recording everything, analyzing their body language, and sending coded messages to teams across the galaxy. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Jin asked, keeping his voice level and professional. A new alien spoke up, this one looking like a giant spider made of metal and wire. "Integration protocols, human. Your species will be given certain territories to inhabit, certain technologies you'll be allowed to use, and certain roles you can fill in galactic society. Always under our guidance, of course," added another alien that looked like a floating jellyfish made of pure energy. "Young species need careful supervision to prevent them from making dangerous mistakes." Jin had heard enough. These aliens spoke about humanity the way adults spoke about children who couldn't be trusted with sharp objects. They saw humans as primitive, weak, and most importantly, alone. They assumed that the few humans they'd encountered represented all of humanity, scattered and unorganized across a single planet. They had no idea how wrong they were. Captain Mira's datapad showed her messages from teams stationed across 17 different star systems. While the Galactic Council had been busy congratulating themselves on discovering Earth, humans had been quietly spreading across the galaxy for decades. Some had come as refugees from conflicts they'd helped create. Others had arrived as traders, selling seemingly innocent goods while gathering intelligence. Few had even married into alien families, becoming trusted members of their communities. The aliens thought they were dealing with a single world of 6 billion primitive humans. They didn't know about the mining colonies on Kepler 442b, where Kyung and his team had been preparing for years. They didn't know about the research stations hidden in asteroid fields, where human scientists had been reverse engineering alien technology. They didn't know about the sleeper cells on major trade worlds, where humans had been building networks and gathering allies. "Your terms are generous," Jin said finally, standing up from his chair. The movement was slow and deliberate, commanding attention from every alien in the room. "But I'm afraid you've misunderstood something fundamental about humanity. The crystalline." Ambassador Yule's features seemed to brighten with amusement. "Oh, and what might that be?" Jin smiled for the first time since entering the room. It wasn't a friendly smile. "You assume we're alone." At that moment, Mira's datapad chimed softly. Messages were coming in from across the galaxy. Human teams on dozens of worlds were reporting the same thing. Alien officials everywhere were holding similar meetings, making similar demands, offering similar terms. The Galactic Council had made the mistake of treating this like a standard first contact situation. They didn't realize they were walking into a trap that humanity had been setting for 50 years. Dr. Hana adjusted her lab coat and walked through the corridors of Europa Research Station, her footsteps echoing against the metal walls. Outside the reinforced windows, Jupiter's massive form dominated the view, its swirling storms casting an orange glow across the ice-covered surface of the moon below. But today, she wasn't thinking about the beautiful scenery. Today, she had visitors who thought they were teaching humanity its first lessons about advanced technology. The research station had been built 15 years ago, officially as a medical research facility studying the effects of low gravity on human biology. What the public didn't know was that it had always been designed for this moment, the day when aliens would come calling and humanity would need to play the part of eager, primitive students. Science leader Vorth moved through the lab like a walking nightmare, his insect-like body supported by 6 spindly legs that clicked against the floor with each step. His species, the Zephyrians, looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a spider, with compound eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Behind him followed 2 assistants from different alien species. One looked like a walking tree, made of purple coral, while the other resembled a floating blob of silver liquid that constantly shifted shape. "This is our main laboratory," Hana explained, gesturing toward the banks of equipment that lined the walls. "We've been working on cellular regeneration therapy, using the medical scanners your people provided 3 weeks ago." The alien delegation stopped at a workstation where Dr. Junho was examining tissue samples under what appeared to be a standard microscope. But Hana knew better. The device had been completely rebuilt using alien technology, then disguised to look like human equipment. Junho looked up with the perfect expression of scholarly excitement as he explained his work. "Their cellular imaging capabilities are incredible," Junho said, his voice filled with genuine enthusiasm that wasn't entirely fake. "We're seeing details we never could have imagined before." Science leader Vorth's mandibles clicked together in what Hana had learned was their equivalent of a pleased laugh. "Most fascinating. Your species shows remarkable learning capacity. In just 3 weeks, you have achieved integration levels that typically require months of careful instruction." What Vorth didn't know was that every piece of alien technology had been completely analyzed within days of arrival. Hidden beneath the research station, in levels that didn't appear on any official blueprints, teams of engineers had been working around the clock to understand, replicate, and improve upon everything the aliens had shared. Dr. Somin approached from another workstation, carrying a datapad that looked perfectly normal but was actually running on hybrid human-alien processors that were already 3 generations ahead of what the visitors had provided. "Dr. Hana, the cellular reconstruction trials are showing promising results." "Excellent," Hana replied, then turned to address their guests. "Would you like to see our progress on the regenerative medicine applications?" As they moved through the lab, Hana pointed out various experiments and research projects. To the aliens, it looked like humanity was making impressive but expected progress with their gifts of technology. They saw eager human scientists working with basic applications of advanced alien science, exactly what they expected from a primitive species being introduced to galactic-level technology for the first time. They didn't see the micro-cameras, hidden in every piece of equipment, recording not just their conversations, but analyzing their biology, their technology, and their reactions to human capabilities. They didn't notice that every question the humans asked had been carefully planned to extract specific information while appearing naturally curious. They certainly didn't realize that every human they'd met had been specifically selected and trained for these encounters. Dr. Kwan, the station's official director, joined the group as they entered the main conference room. The walls were lined with displays showing various research projects, all designed to demonstrate human progress, without revealing human capabilities. "We're particularly excited about the potential for this technology to help with our colonization efforts," he said. The tree-like alien, who had identified himself as botanist Groot Carr, rustled his coral-like branches in what seemed to be approval. "Your species shows admirable ambition. Many young races focus only on their home world for centuries after first contact." Hana nodded politely, not mentioning that humans had been establishing hidden colonies for decades. She also didn't mention that her brother Tai, who supposedly worked in agricultural research according to his official records, was actually stationed on one of those colonies as part of military intelligence. Right now he was probably briefing teams on 17 different worlds about everything they were learning from today's visit. The liquid silver alien flowed closer to examine one of the displays. Your integration of our biotechnology with your existing medical knowledge shows remarkable adaptability. Most species require extensive cultural preparation before they can effectively utilize such advances. We've always been quick learners, Hana replied with a modest smile. What she didn't say was that humanity had been preparing for this moment since the first alien probe had been detected at the edge of the solar system 5 years ago. Every piece of technology, every cultural exchange, every seemingly innocent conversation was part of a carefully orchestrated plan that had been decades in the making. The aliens saw what they expected to see, a young, eager species taking its first steps into galactic civilization under their wise guidance. They were too busy being impressed with human adaptability to notice that they were being studied, analyzed, and quietly outmaneuvered by the very species they thought they were teaching. Colonial Administrator Kyung sat in his small office overlooking the vast mining operations of Kepler 442b, watching the sunrise paint the alien landscape in shades of purple and gold. The twin suns of this system created spectacular dawns, but he rarely had time to appreciate the beauty. Today was different, though. Today, everything was about to change. His communicator had buzzed just after midnight with a message that looked like routine supply reports to anyone monitoring the channels. But Kyung knew the real meaning behind those coded words. Phase 2 had begun back on Earth, which meant his 2 years of careful preparation were about to be put to the test. He stood up and walked to his window, looking down at the mining facility spread out below. Massive excavation machines worked around the clock, operated by a mix of alien species and the humans who had somehow found their way to this distant world. To the hegemony overseers, it was just another successful mining operation on another conquered world. They had no idea they were sitting on top of the most elaborate infiltration operation in human history. The door to his office opened without a knock, and Nara stepped inside. Officially, she was his wife and the colony's communications officer. Unofficially, she was one of the most skilled intelligence operatives Earth had ever produced. Her job was supposed to be managing routine communications between the mining facility and other hegemony worlds. What she actually did was coordinate a network of human operatives spread across 17 star systems. The morning reports are in, she said, setting down a data pad that contained much more than mining statistics. Productivity is up across all sectors. Kyung nodded, understanding the coded language. All 17 cells were operational and ready. Any issues with the new workers? A few minor adjustments needed, Nara replied, which meant some of their people had been questioned but had maintained their cover stories. The hegemony supervisors seemed satisfied with our progress. That was the beauty of the whole operation. The hegemony had conquered hundreds of worlds over the centuries, and they had a standard playbook for dealing with refugees and displaced populations. They would allow small groups to settle on mining worlds or agricultural colonies where they could be useful but closely monitored. What they didn't expect was for those refugees to be highly trained operatives working toward a coordinated goal. Kyung had arrived on Kepler 442b 2 years ago as part of a group of 50 human refugees whose ship had supposedly suffered engine failure near the system. The hegemony had been generous, offering them work and shelter in exchange for labor in the mines. They had asked few questions about how a group of humans had acquired an interstellar vessel, or why their technical skills were so advanced for such a supposedly primitive species. Within 6 months, Kyung had worked his way up to become the administrator for the human workers. Within a year, he was managing logistics for the entire operation. The hegemony overseers were impressed with human organizational abilities and work ethic. They never suspected that every promotion, every responsibility, every piece of access Kyung gained was part of a carefully planned infiltration. Dr. Inho knocked on the door and entered, carrying his medical kit. Officially, he was the colony's physician, responsible for keeping the human workers healthy in the harsh mining environment. In reality, he was a biochemist who had been analyzing alien physiology and developing targeted compounds that could incapacitate various species without causing permanent harm. "The health reports are ready," Inho said, setting down another datapad. "Everyone's in good condition for the upcoming shift changes." Shift changes. That was code for the coordinated actions that would begin across all 17 worlds simultaneously. For 2 years, humans had been quietly taking positions in critical infrastructure, learning alien systems, and preparing for this moment. The mining facility itself was a perfect example of how thoroughly humans had infiltrated hegemony operations. What appeared to be routine maintenance and upgrades had actually been systematic preparation. The power grid could be shut down from 3 different locations that humans now controlled. The communications array could be reprogrammed to send false reports while blocking real distress signals. Even the food supply had been gradually altered to include compounds that would make the alien overseers sluggish and confused when the time came. Kyung walked over to his desk and activated his personal communicator, sending what appeared to be a routine status report to Hegemony Command. The message confirmed that mining operations were proceeding normally, that the human workers were performing satisfactorily, and that there were no security concerns to report. But embedded within that routine report was a different message, one that would be decoded by human operatives on 16 other worlds. The signal was simple: stand by for final phase activation. Over the past 2 years, humans had demonstrated exactly the qualities that made them so dangerous to the galactic order. They were adaptable, learning alien languages and customs with remarkable speed. They were patient, willing to spend years building trust and gaining access. Most importantly, they were cooperative, working together toward long-term goals while maintaining perfect operational security. The hegemony had made the same mistake that many powerful civilizations throughout history had made. They had underestimated their enemies and overestimated their own security. They saw humans as another conquered species, grateful for the opportunity to serve in their empire. They never imagined that these grateful refugees were actually advanced scouts for something much larger. Kyung looked out his window one more time at the mining operation below. Tomorrow this facility would still be producing valuable minerals for the hegemony, but it would be humans, not aliens, who decided where those minerals went and how they were used. The transition would be so smooth that it might take the hegemony weeks to realize what had happened. Phase 2 was beginning, and humanity was about to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. Admiral Dong stood on the bridge of the Stealth, ship Silent Thunder, hidden deep within the asteroid field at the edge of the Sol system. Through the massive view screen, he could see the hegemony warfleet approaching Earth in perfect formation. 12 massive battleships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built, or so the aliens believed. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of equipment and the occasional beep from monitoring stations. His crew of 30 had been preparing for this moment their entire careers. They weren't the heroes who would be remembered in history books. They were the shadows who made victory possible. "Distance to target?" Dong asked, his voice calm despite the magnitude of what was about to unfold. "Hegemony fleet is holding position at lunar orbit," reported Navigation Officer Chaewon. "They're powering up their main weapons." Lieutenant Bora, his tactical officer, looked up from her station with grim satisfaction. "Sir, confirmation signals are coming in from all 17 systems. Every cell is in position and ready for activation." Dong nodded slowly. For 5 years, he had been commanding this secret fleet that officially didn't exist. The ships had been built in hidden facilities, scattered throughout the outer solar system, using materials mined from asteroids and technology reverse-engineered from alien artifacts. Earth's governments knew about the project, but even they didn't know the full scope of what humanity had accomplished. The alien fleet commander was broadcasting on all frequencies now, his voice filled with the arrogance of someone who had never been challenged. "People of Earth, you have rejected our generous offer of integration into the galactic community. As a demonstration of hegemony power, we will now eliminate the city you call Detroit. This uninhabited area will serve as an example of what happens to species that refuse to accept their place in the natural order. Dong almost smiled at that. Detroit uninhabited, if only they knew. The city had been evacuated months ago, but it certainly wasn't empty. Hidden beneath its abandoned buildings were some of humanity's most advanced defensive systems, all waiting for exactly this moment. "Sir," called out communications specialist Jiwon from her station, "we're receiving the final confirmation codes from Earth Command. Operation Reversal is authorized to proceed." This was it. Everything humanity had worked toward for decades was about to be decided in the next few minutes. Dong took a deep breath and gave the order that would change the galaxy forever. "Execute Phase 3. Send the activation signal to all cells." Lieutenant Bora's fingers flew across her control panel, sending out coded transmissions that looked like routine maintenance signals to anyone monitoring the frequencies. But across 17 star systems, human operatives who had spent years building trust and gaining access suddenly revealed their true capabilities. On Kepler 442b, Kyung shut down the main power grid that supplied 3 mining worlds, while his team simultaneously took control of the communication relays that coordinated supply shipments across that entire sector. On Proxima Station, Dr. Minji activated a computer virus that crashed the trading networks for half the galaxy's commerce. On the agricultural world of New Haven, Captain Young-ho and his team sabotaged the food processing plants that fed the hegemony's core worlds. But the real surprise came from places the aliens had never imagined humans could reach. Inside the hegemony's own capital ships, crew members who had been serving faithfully for months suddenly revealed themselves as human operatives. They didn't attack or sabotage. They simply activated systems that shut down engines, disabled weapons, and sent false reports back to command. The alien war fleet approaching Earth suddenly found themselves in serious trouble. Their fuel supplies were reading empty even though the tanks should have been full. Their communication systems were receiving conflicting orders from multiple sources. Most critically, their weapons were powering down just as they prepared to fire. "Sir, the alien fleet is breaking formation," reported Chaewon with barely contained excitement. "They're trying to withdraw, but their engines are failing." That was when Dong gave his second order, the one that would announce humanity's presence as a galactic power. "All ships decloak and move to intercept positions." Around the asteroid field, 30 human warships suddenly appeared as their stealth systems deactivated. They had been hiding in plain sight for hours, waiting for this exact moment. The ships were smaller than the alien battleships, but they moved with the precision of a coordinated pack, while the hegemony fleet struggled with system failures. But the human ships weren't alone. From behind Jupiter's moons, another fleet emerged. These ships built in the gas giant's upper atmosphere, using techniques the aliens didn't even know existed. From the outer asteroid belt came mining vessels that had been converted into carriers, launching small fighter craft that swarmed around the disabled alien ships like angry hornets. The demonstration the aliens had planned to intimidate humanity became a disaster that revealed their own weaknesses. Instead of showing their power, they had shown how dependent they were on systems that humans now controlled. Their great war fleet, pride of the hegemony military, sat helpless in space while human ships surrounded them. "Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from 7 alien vessels," Lieutenant Bora reported. "The others are requesting permission to withdraw." Admiral Dong looked out at the scene unfolding before him. The aliens had expected to find a primitive world defended by basic technology. Instead, they had discovered that humans had been preparing for this encounter for decades, building fleets in secret, placing operatives throughout their empire, and developing technologies that turned the aliens' own systems against them. "Open a channel to the alien fleet, Commander," Dong ordered. "It's time to discuss new terms." President Sora walked into the massive conference chamber aboard Harmony Station, her footsteps echoing in the vast space designed to accommodate hundreds of different alien species. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, built at the neutral point between 3 major galactic powers specifically for diplomatic meetings like this one. But today's meeting was unlike any that had come before. The chamber was arranged in concentric circles, with the most powerful species occupying the inner rings and smaller civilizations placed toward the outer edges. 5 years ago, humanity would have been lucky to get a seat in the back row if they had been invited at all. Today, President Sora took her place at the central negotiating table as an equal partner in galactic affairs. Around her sat beings that represented the culmination of millions of years of evolution across thousands of worlds. The crystal-bodied Krethak Dominion, whose ambassador Yule had once spoken so condescendingly about humanity's place in the galactic hierarchy. The insect-like Zephyrians, whose science leader Vorth had been so impressed by human learning capabilities. The energy-based consortium, the plant-like botanical alliance, and dozens of other species that had once viewed humans as nothing more than interesting primitives. Now they looked at her with something entirely different in their alien eyes, respect mixed with wariness, and perhaps just a touch of fear. Elder Diplomat Quan, Earth's most experienced negotiator, stood beside a massive holographic projector that dominated the center of the room. At 73 years old, he had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, studying alien psychology and diplomatic protocols that most humans couldn't even pronounce. His calm demeanor and silver hair gave him an appearance of wisdom that served humanity well in these crucial negotiations. Honored representatives, President Sora began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. We gather today not to discuss terms of surrender or subjugation, but to establish a framework for mutual cooperation that benefits all species represented here. A ripple of movement went through the alien delegates. 5 years ago, such words from a human would have been met with laughter or dismissal. Today, they listened carefully to every word. Ambassador Yule's crystalline form shifted in what Sora had learned was their equivalent of clearing their throat. President Sora, while recent events have certainly demonstrated humanity's capabilities, we must address the systematic infiltration of our societies and the coordinated disruption of galactic commerce. Sora nodded acknowledgement, but didn't apologize. Ambassador Yule, what you call infiltration, we call integration. What you call disruption, we call demonstration. For decades, your species and others treated humanity as children who needed guidance and supervision. We simply proved that assumption was incorrect. Elder Diplomat Quan activated the holographic display, and the chamber filled with a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of star systems appeared as points of light, connected by the trade routes and communication networks that kept galactic civilization functioning. But now those connections showed something the aliens hadn't fully grasped until recently. This display shows the current state of galactic infrastructure, Quan explained, manipulating the hologram to highlight specific systems. As you can see, human innovation and involvement has become integral to maintaining the network that connects all our worlds. The display zoomed in on various systems, showing human-designed improvements to mining operations, human-mediated solutions to territorial disputes, and human-developed technologies that had increased efficiency across dozens of different industries. What looked like scattered human presence was actually a carefully coordinated network that had quietly become essential to galactic civilization. Science leader Vorth's compound eyes focused on a particular section of the display. The medical advances alone have saved millions of lives across 17 species, he admitted reluctantly. Your people's approach to combining different technological traditions has produced results we thought impossible. That was exactly the point Sora wanted to make. Humans hadn't conquered the galaxy through military force, though they had certainly demonstrated that capability. Instead, they had made themselves indispensable by being better at solving problems than anyone else. Look at the Andorian conflict, Quan continued, highlighting a region where 2 species had been fighting for over 3 centuries. Human mediators resolved that dispute in 18 months by finding solutions that neither side had considered. The Zeta Sector mining crisis, the Proxima food shortage, the communication breakdown between the Silicon Alliance and the Carbon Coalition. In every case, human involvement led to better outcomes for everyone involved. Captain Nara, now serving as Earth's military liaison, stepped forward to address the security concerns that were clearly on many minds. Our peacekeeping forces currently maintain stability in 47 disputed territories. We don't occupy these areas. We simply ensure that conflicts are resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. The implications were clear to everyone in the chamber. Humanity had positioned itself at the center of galactic civilization, not through conquest, but through competence. They had become the species that others turned to when problems needed solving, conflicts needed resolving, or innovations needed developing. A new voice spoke up from the outer ring, Representative Hio of the Titan Mining Consortium, a species that looked like walking gemstones. What assurances do we have that humanity won't use this position to dominate other species? President Sora smiled at the question. Representative Hio, domination requires constant military pressure and suppression of other cultures. That's expensive, inefficient, and ultimately self-defeating. Cooperation, on the other hand, makes everyone stronger and more prosperous. Elder Diplomat Quan brought up another section of the holographic display. Our proposal is simple. We establish formal frameworks for the cooperation that already exists. Human technical expertise, mediation services, and peacekeeping capabilities become officially available to all species. In return, we gain full membership in galactic institutions and equal representation in decision-making processes. The chamber fell silent as the alien delegates considered the proposal. They were being offered exactly what they had always claimed to want: a peaceful, cooperative galactic community where conflicts were resolved through negotiation and every species contributed according to their strengths. The only difference was that now humans would be partners in that community, not subjects of it. Ambassador Yule's crystalline features seemed to dim as he spoke. You have given us little choice in this matter. On the contrary, President Sora replied, you have every choice. You can work with us as equals, or you can try to return to the old ways of doing things. But I think you'll find that the galaxy has changed, and those old ways no longer work as well as they once did. The truth was undeniable. Humanity had won not through force of arms, but through force of necessity. They had made themselves too valuable to oppose and too integrated to remove. The age of human subjugation was over. The age of human partnership had begun.